All right, let's jump right in. We've all been told that setting goals is the secret sauce for success. But what if that's not the full picture? Today, we're going to look at goals in a totally different way, not just as wishes or plans, but as these powerful forces that can literally reshape how we think and act from the second we create them. I mean, we all know the standard playbook, right? Goals are supposed to be clarifying, motivating, they give us direction, they empower us. In basically every part of life, from your career to your personal projects, they're treated as this unquestionable good. It's the foundation of how we're all taught to get things done. But is it really that simple? Come on. What if, underneath all that positivity, setting a goal has this hidden, almost architectural effect on us? An effect that kicks in whether we want it to or not. And that brings us to the core idea for this whole explainer, what I'm calling a goal's hidden gravity. We're going to explore how goals don't just point us in a direction, they actively pull on us, right here in the present, reshaping our thinking in some really powerful and sometimes surprising ways. This slide really gets to the heart of it. On the left, you've got what we think a goal is. You know, a desire, a preference, a plan we cooked up. But on the right is what it structurally is. It's a reference point that's anchored way out in the future. And that anchor exerts a real force, a load on us today. It literally pulls our thinking, our cognition toward it. So there's actually a technical term for this, a load attractor. Let's just break that down for a second. It's a point in the future, that's the attractor, that creates pressure or load on your current cognitive system, your mental architecture. It's not just some passive idea in your head, it's an active force. And here's the kicker. This is not some slow, gradual process. This reorganization happens the instant you set a goal. Not when you start working on it, not next week, immediately. Your whole internal system just reconfigures itself around that future point. So what does this pressure actually feel like? Well, we usually give it a positive name, like drive or motivation. But structurally, it's the result of a few key things. You start constantly comparing your present self to your future goal-achieving self. You become painfully aware of the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And you start projecting your very identity onto that future outcome. It's a constant, low-grade evaluation running in the background. That's the load we're talking about. Right, and this is where things can start to go sideways. Because this constant pressure, this load, it has hidden costs. It can lead to something called structural narrowing and a really heavy identity load, which we're going to unpack right now. Okay, so imagine your mind is like a vast landscape, full of different possible paths. When you set a goal, the one path leading to it suddenly becomes a superhighway. It gets wider, faster, clearer. But here's the catch. All those other interesting side roads, the scenic routes, they start to narrow. They fade into the background. Your brain literally starts filtering out information that isn't directly relevant to the goal. Your world becomes black and white. Am I making progress or am I not? This isn't just being focused, it's a fundamental narrowing of your entire cognitive world. And that is exactly why we can be so fixated on a goal that we completely miss a golden opportunity that's sitting right in front of us. It's not because you weren't paying attention, it's because your cognitive system was so constrained, so narrowed, that that other path was literally invisible to you. Now, things get even more intense when goals get all tangled up with who we are as people. We stop saying, I want to achieve X, and we start saying something like this, I am the kind of person who is going to. This is what we call identity load, and it's a big one. Once a goal becomes a part of your identity, the stakes shoot through the roof. A setback is no longer just a delay. It feels like a deep personal failure. Taking a day off doesn't feel like smart recovery. It feels like you're being lazy and unjustified, because the goal isn't just a target anymore. It's become a measure of your worth as a person. And this leads to a really strange but common experience, especially for high achievers. You work for years, you sacrifice, you finally hit that massive goal, and you feel nothing. Or worse, you feel this weird emptiness. Why on earth does that happen? Well, the structural explanation is something called an architectural vacuum. Think about it. That goal, that load attractor, was the central organizing force of your life. It created all the pressure, all the direction, all the meaning. The second you achieve it, that force just vanishes. Poof! The whole structure that was holding you together collapses, and it leaves this void. It's not you being ungrateful. It is a predictable architectural event. So, if goals can create all these problems, what's the alternative? Are we just supposed to drift aimlessly? No, not at all. There is another way. It's about finding a way to move forward without being constantly yanked around by that intense pressure from the future. This slide really lays out the two different modes. On the one hand, you've got that classic goal-driven load. You're being pulled by the future, it feels urgent and anxious, and it narrows your world. But on the other hand, you have what we could call direction without pressure. This kind of movement arises naturally from your present state, from who you are right now. It feels calm and coherent, and it works with your natural cognitive landscape instead of fighting against it. And I know what some of you are thinking. What about SMART goals? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. It's a super popular framework, but from this perspective, it often misses the point. By making a goal more specific and more time-bound, you can actually just crank up the pressure, shorten the timeline, and tie it even more tightly to your identity. You get better at tracking your progress toward burnout, but you don't solve the underlying structural problem. For decades, really, the entire conversation around achievement has been dominated by one question, right? How do I achieve my goals? We've been completely focused on tactics, hacks, and motivation. But looking at it this way gives us a much more useful, much more powerful question to ask ourselves. Instead of just how, we should be asking, what load does this goal actually introduce into my life? And can my personal architecture even hold it? It shifts the focus from just blindly chasing something to consciously assessing the cost. Can my system actually handle this pressure without distorting or breaking? And that leaves us with this final, really critical takeaway. Behavior follows architecture, not intention. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if the structure you've created with your goals is unstable, or if it puts way too much pressure on your system, your behavior is going to reflect that broken structure, not your original noble desire. And that, right there, is a profound shift in how we can think about moving through the world and actually pursuing the things that matter most to us.